That's right, guys. Today, we're gonna break down the new Z06 carbon wide body program called OPSIS. So as you guys are aware, we've kind of teased at it over the past couple months, and I believe about 6-7 months ago we placed an order for a new Z06 right here at my desk. And throughout all of this time, I didn't really know what the car was going to turn out like. I spent a lot of time working with a freelance designer that we work actually remotely through Zoom and over the internet, creating this wide body program that we've dubbed OPSIS for the new Z06. And I'll explain what OPSIS means a little bit later. But this episode is going to be about how I start from, I'll say, an idea, take that into function, and then turn that function into reality with the rendering of the complete car. I'm very proud with where this program has gone. We still have a long road ahead of us to get to manufacturing, but I want to show you guys some of the steps and things that have happened over the past, I would say, 6 months of design and ideas and creation to get what I think is going to be probably the best looking Z06 program on the market. So one of the first things I want to show you guys is essentially the assembly of the car. So in this viewer file, this is all of our CAD data that's been created to create the wide body. This is a really cool illustration of what it looks like in its package form. This is every single part. Depending on which variation we go with, there's still a couple other parts that are in development. There'll be a final tally of 35 to 39, depending on which program the client chooses. But in this particular case, it outlines everything. Now, the neat thing about this is that it shows you our new hood. It shows you our duct, which is something I'm very proud of. Our smaller factory style canard, our over fenders on the front. It also shows our side skirt package, our rear fender extensions, this amazing rear diffuser. That's right, this whole thing is your diffuser. One of the most difficult pieces to create is still one of those items we're working with the manufacturer on how to create this in a way that doesn't cost $100,000. Additional to that is obviously our upgraded rear wing and rear wing uprights, which I'll talk about in a bit, and also our long-awaited, that's right, roof scoop camera assembly. So this is going to be a complete replacement part to the factory camera housing. This is an integrated roof scoop camera housing and duct outlets that go down into the engine bay, creating cooling and getting more airflow into the engine bay. So my thought process in creating the Z06 wide body was a little different than the C8. The C8 was a proof of concept, let's call it. Something that I've always wanted to do, but didn't know if I could do. It fell along the time of COVID when everybody was kind of locked down, and I was able to spend the time needed to learn a lot, get connected with people that could help me bring a creation to reality. Through all of that, we learned a lot of lessons, got our butt kicked several times, lost money, lost material, did things 2 or 3 times, lost relationships with suppliers or vendors because they couldn't come through or their quality wasn't where it needed to be, and we continued to just adapt. And for me, the name Vunio on the C8 was indicative to what it took to create that for me personally. Vunio is the Greek term meaning mountain. So I kind of assimilated that project as a mountain. How do you get to the top of a mountain? I don't think it's by just simply climbing straight up. I think it requires a lot of effort, a lot of planning, a lot of hard work, and that's exactly what that program showed me, is that it requires all of that to do something like that. So I knew once we accomplished that feat of building those cars for clients and we saw that clients liked it and the way the car was accepted, I said, well, how could we turn that up a notch and how do we improve upon what I felt like was a really good program? And I think this is exactly how you do it. So on the Z06, because the Z06 is more the performance variant, I always had the idea that we would make this a more, I'll say, functional, but more aggressive, performance-based AERO kit, if you'll call it that, or wide body kit. I don't like to call it a kit because we don't sell it as a kit, but that's the term everybody uses nowadays. What we decided to do was take the elements of the Z06, similar to the C8, and expand upon them. So obviously making the car wider. So this car again will be 85 inches in width. The same width as our C8 wide body, which happens to be 4.5 inches wider than the already wide Z06. So when people ask us, well, how are you widening the Z06? Well, we're doing it by 2.5 in the front, 4.5 in the rear. Still a much larger, a more wider, aggressive package than the factory package. And with the added styling that the Z06 has on it, I feel like it allows us to be even more aggressive with our styling. So when we started on it, the first couple things that we talked about changing were obviously the fenders. And how do we make these fenders look good? Well, what we decided to do on this particular one is we use the same, I'll say, premise as the C8 fender. We wanted to widen it, but we also wanted to accentuate body lines or add body lines where they were or they kind of tapered off. In this particular case, we created a style line that went from the front over fender and goes all the way over back to where our rear facing vent will actually end. To me, this was a really important part because it creates that hard edge on the outer edge, which is actually your rear facing vent. On top of that, we decided to put these are going to be rear inserted functional fender vents in here that will be able to clearance and cut our fender liners to make these extractors and create airflow through the fender well, like a GT3 RS. There's a cool little detail here that if I can zoom in on it properly, I want to show you. So if you guys look at the GT3 Corvette and you look at how their fenders are built, I like the look of those, but I didn't like the fully exposed rear section. So I took a very small section of that race car and integrated it. And it's this build-up area right here in the corner of the headlight. Now this actually serves two purposes. We had a big challenge in creating that gap to look factory with our C8 wide body, where on this particular car, with it being thicker, it eliminates that issue that we had at a very flat panel sitting there and kind of sliding down and not being able, I'm a stickler for gaps, not being able to narrow that gap to the distance that I felt it should be. This is going to allow us to create a hard edge. It will attach the same way as the factory fender, but it will give us this beefed up race car look in the front, which gives us more girth, I'll say, out here. So instead of being flat and starting back, we're starting up nearly a half or 3/4 of an inch up and then diving back into our vents. So just a small little detail. We have a lot of these details. I won't talk about all of them through it, but we integrate these types of styling cues that we see from like the race car into a factory production car, but also into a styled package as well. So it's not just reproducing something that somebody already created. The other, I'll say, not necessarily controversial, but I'll say different rear fender idea that I like to have in these cars is we take an accentuated part on the car and we actually make it bigger. And what that does, instead of trying to cram another vent in here or trying to make this wider, which I've seen other companies do, which just doesn't seem to pull off right without addressing the complete lower rocker of the car, which would require you to cut out the footwell insert and all of that to slide over, big cost. We accentuate this piece and actually make that part of the styling package of the side of the car. When these first came out, these spears or whatever they call them, I wasn't a big fan of them, but then when we started to play around with the rendering ideas of making that even bigger, it just added an element that I thought was interesting. What we did on top of that was create that style line that comes off the back of that, and then that will actually transition and taper off all the way through our rear bumper over fender. Now the other really interesting part, and this is something that I like to say that I stick to, and you can kind of see with some of our other designs, is that as these design or style lines come off the fenders, I like them to transition down into other components. To me, that's what lends itself into looking cohesive, like it was supposed to be like that, is because we're taking every part and linking it with the parts that it connects to and making sure the styling cues aren't battling each other. When they do battle each other, that's when we see weird things happening. It just doesn't look right to the eye. You might be able to pull it off in real life, but to me, if you sit and analyze it long enough, you'll see things that probably should have been tweaked and changed. And I see that with my own stuff, even when I'm done with it and look at it after a year, 2 years, 3 years. who knows, I'll eventually look back at it and say, we should have done something a little different here. But this I'm really proud of. I like the way this comes down. This is the side skirt fin design that I wanted to maintain that was similar to our other one, except this fin design is a much more tailored and styled design. So if you guys can tell in the camera, we have our skirt that's going to be contoured sort of with the body of the car, and then the skirt's going to come up on one angle, and then it's going to catch the angle of the actual rear fender as it goes up. Now this is what really pulls that all together, is that it comes down in the same plane, and then when it comes down to intersect our skirt, it kind of flows down into the skirt in going a lot of different ways. Not only is it coming down, but then it tapers in, then it tapers out towards the front of the car, making that gradual rise there, which I think looks really good. Now when this is all together on the car, it will also create what looks like a visual vent on the lower side. I've always liked vents down there. They're hard to accomplish without doing a rocker replacement. In this particular case, I think this is going to look really good when it's done in person. But again, only renderings right now, so we can just say it looks good in the renderings. Hopefully it looks good in real life. And then on the front of that skirt, we did something a little different than the C8, is we brought that same idea of the rear fin and applied it to the front. So what we did here is we brought this style down. So this is going to be our replacement fender, and then we'll have the rear facing vent there, which will attach in the factory point, and then we'll have our fin that will start our side skirt also there. Again, creating another air pocket or channel to direct air alongside the car and go to the rear of the car. To me, it just adds a little bit of styling here. It also ties into our front splitter, front fin. So it kind of has a reoccurring theme as we go through the whole lower line of the car. Now with that being said, we come back to this massive rear diffuser, which I'm pumped. I can't wait to see this in real life. Assuming we can make all of this come to happen in real life, the rear diffuser is going to be a big challenge. I think we can get it done. We're going to have to be creative with it. But we brought a rear fin on the diffuser and integrated it into the diffuser styling itself. Now this was different for me. I typically don't like that, but I did like it. I think AERO did something similar, if I'm not mistaken. Shout out to AERO, they do some amazing work. But I did like somebody's kit where I saw them integrate some sort of fin back there. So I had always thought about how could I integrate it and make it make sense into this kit. And I think we finally found the version of it that does work well. Now on top of that, it is going to serve another purpose. So what's not shown here obviously is the factory rear bumper in place. So the factory rear bumper is going to be snapped in here as usual, and then our over bumper piece will actually attach to our diffuser and be pinned there. So it will look very much like it was intended to be there the entire time, which that's something that I really wanted to do back there. The last one came out well, but the diffuser obviously fell off down here, and I feel like this will really make the back end look a lot more aggressive, especially with that wider. I think that's going to add 2.5 inches per side. So it's just going to give it more lower line width as opposed to the mid-level belt line of the car looking the widest. Now some of you might be looking at this and saying, what is this 3 outlet here? Well, that's right. We're going to do a triple exhaust, and this is going to be a label exclusive part that we are going to have fabricated. And we haven't determined if we're going to run 2 smalls into one down here and then 2 large up top. But this has all been planned to be right in the factory location where the quad tip is, except we're going to make provisions to have the triple tip come through all in that area. On top of that, we'll put our C8 mesh that matches behind there, and this will be completely open and vented, allow for a lot of cooling to come through. And also, if we can get the fab right, we want to be able to show off some of the exhaust work back there, which there might be something a little special back there that we can't really tell you about yet, but I think if you stay tuned, you'll see what we mean in future episodes. Now, this is something that I've been asked a million times about, this front hood. I understand you guys all want to buy it. You want to purchase it independent of the kit. We just can't sell it independent of the kit because you don't want to pay for it. And unfortunately, the cost to manufacture a fully ducted functional hood is extremely expensive. You could spend $20,000 on a part like this and still have to do maybe some finishing. It just depends on quantities. That's why you'll see a lot of the companies out there making ducted hoods. I've already seen some ZR1 knockoff hoods that literally have nothing there. So that's right, when it rains or you get water or dust or leaves, it's all going to collect there. You're going to blow it out. You're going to have to do whatever it takes. But you got the facade that you have a vented hood. The one thing that I don't ever want to do is put something on the car that is a facade. For me, unless our purpose is to test or do something that I don't know. I don't really know the application, but hindering what the car was made for, whether that's performance, whether that's quality of material that's on, whether it's replacing a part with another part, you should never do that with an inferior product. So for me, if we're going to sell the fact that we've got a ducted hood and we want to say that it's ducted, then we should probably make it functional. There's lots of ways that we could have done this and cut some corners. The problem that I had with that is that if we're going to stand behind it and tell people we've got a fully ducted hood, we better put in the time and effort to do so. Now, doing that is what makes it so expensive. So only the guys that are willing to build these wide bodies are going to be able to source the optional ducted hood. And I say yes, that's optional, because if you do the traditional wide body package, the ducted hood is an add-on option because of the cost that it takes to do that. You will get the factory hood in carbon, so that's why we keep the ducted hood as an optional item, is simply due to the cost of the hood. You will receive the standard carbon hood if you don't source that optionally, but as we've seen with the C8 program, we only had one guy that sourced the standard hood because he wanted to retain the storage in the front trunk. This one, you will still be able to have storage in the front trunk. This really cool duct. This is a good opportunity for me to show you this. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with the Z06 has a center mount auxiliary cooler radiator right here. We kind of noticed that on the C8 program that there were bracket provisions in there, so we kind of assumed something was coming. So what we did is we scanned the entire internal part of the Z06 and we created this duct around that radiator. We also have brackets too, which can be seen here, along with a couple other brackets that will be urethaned in place, that will actually stay mounted in the front bumper. Now what that snap fits to is this duct. So this is your internal duct that will actually go into your front trunk. And when I say go into your front trunk, I don't mean it goes fully in there, but it goes right here. So you're viewing this basically with the hood closed, and inside the front trunk, this duct will be placed right on the front of the front tub. So it will come through there, set flush up against the front tub, and then when the hood actually closes, it will have a weather seal around the bottom and form a seal at that point. And there you can see the hood. So these clicks are just isolating each part so you can see them individually. So as we click the hood, you can see this will be the pass-through. Our duct will be through there, creating great airflow. Also, if there's water, debris, anything that gets in there, it will be funneled down through there and won't get caught up in the hood. So I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of other details, but some of the other things that I wanted you guys to see just from the B side, also this is what adds to the cost of these programs, is all of this detail. So as I click each one, these are individual parts. So these we will either have machined or we will have 3D printed, or they will be made out of carbon depending on what the application is. But these are all mounting points, brackets, in assemblies that allow us to mount in the factory location. They were all created from the 3D scan data that we created in an earlier episode that you guys have seen. And then we actually attach them all to the fenders once the fenders are done from the carbon shop. So these are all individual processes. For example, this top jam here that goes in the trunk, this is an individual process compared to the fender itself. They will be bonded together and create one complete part as each part comes out from the manufacturer. So this is a factory bracket that on the stock fenders is actually on the internal side of it, and it spans in your door jamb area. There'll be some sound insulation there. We've recreated this on the last car, and obviously we're doing the same on this car, but this is a really challenging piece to make because it has multiple attachment points up and down it. It is also the structure for our closeout fender. So this piece you never see, it's always body colored behind the actual fender, and this closes out where the factory fender used to be. It also what creates that rear facing vent. On top of that, you can see here's some of our other pieces. These are our front fender brackets, and also our headlight bracket that slides in to handle the alignment. Ooh, and I think we got some up here. Let's see. Yep. So all of these are individual pieces. This piece was super tricky to make. It's 3 pieces, so you can see the 2 ducts that will attach to the back side of the vent once it's installed on the car, and direct the airflow to the engine. So the trickiest part of this is not only is it the roof scoop, but it's actually your rear view camera housing. So what we did is we took that factory part, it's going to be hard to see on here because of the contrast, but we recreated the entire substructure of the rear view camera mount system. So this is where the rear view camera will plug in. Your wiring harness provision is here. You'll have clips that pop here, and this part will essentially go on just like your rear view camera housing does, except it has our roof scoop in it. These little vents that go into the engine bay have attachment points, so they'll be attached from the inside, and the only cutting we'll have to do is with our templating. We'll cut these pass-throughs on the hatch, and we're good to go. So this is a part that I'm really proud of. I'd like to see it come to fruition. It'll be something that I've seen others do in, I would say, a more like hobbyist format. To me, this is the way that it should have been done. Maybe it'll be done in the future, but in the meantime, I think it's going to add an element to the car that is really unique and special, and also show off some of our capabilities and the amount of work that went into this wide body. I think I've covered probably most everything in this initial episode. Obviously, we're going to go into a lot more depth in future episodes. This is more along the line of just conveying some of the aspects of this program and where we are going with it, kind of what we did to get to where we are now, and what our ultimate goal is with this, which is to build 10 of these units for clients throughout the world. The term that I'm using for this one is the OPSIS project, and OPSIS is another Greek word that I thought fit this project really well. And it has 2 meanings in the Greek language, which I thought was interesting. It can mean performance or performance of, which obviously this is the Z06, this is the high performance model. This is the one that I believe everybody will be buying to modify, just because it's going to be in that price point that it's not going to break the bank, and it's going to give you everything you need, especially as power adders become available, to go out there, beat everything on the street, look good, sound good, and check all the boxes. The other side of it means spectacle, and I think that's an interesting term because a lot of times a wide body can be a spectacle. That could be good or bad. In this particular case, we're hoping that the reviews are that it's good, and I believe that it will be, assuming we can pull it off the way that we want to and expect to. But I really liked that term. I thought it fit well with what this meant to me and to us as a whole here at Label, and everything that it took to make this get to where we are now, which is just the manufacturing phase. Where we hope to be within the next 100 days is at SEMA with this car in the Gentex booth alongside the Ring Brothers, and debuting to the world what I believe will be the best Z06 wide body program on the planet. And I'm not saying that because I believe what I do is the best. I really believe the amount of work that we did and put into this is going to create something special, especially knowing how we got the C8 program started and how this got started. It's just a night and day difference, and I feel so much better about where we are right now. If you want more information on one of these builds, they are very expensive. They're certainly not going to be for everybody. There'll be people out there saying, why would you spend that much money? Go buy a ZR1, go do this, go do that. Perfectly fine. This isn't for the person that's looking to invest, sell the car. It's not a car that you're saying, how much money can I make off of it, or how much money can I get back off of it? This is a work of art that you can actually drive, something that we're very proud of. They take a lot of time and effort to create. And I think those clients that have found us with the C8 understand that undertaking and appreciate that. That's why they're willing to pay what it takes to get this done. And to be upfront with you guys, we don't make our money on these. We simply build these because this is a creative outlet. We make less money on these than we do our small projects. So please, I don't want anybody to think that this is a labor of how we make money. This is a labor of love, truly, because this has been my dream as a kid growing up, to be able to create my own car and also to build these cars for clients. So it's checking off something off my bucket list, and in the meantime, providing something very special for those who are interested in purchasing this. I think I'll probably wrap it up for now, guys. Did a lot of talking. Hopefully you stuck through it all. If you have more questions, you want more information about how to get on a pre-order list, we're not taking any money up front right now until we are in manufacturing. We've never taken any money in the past ahead to fund a project. We only take money once we have entered production and we know the parts are good to go and we have a viable product to sell to you guys, and you rely on us for that. So stay tuned, guys. I'm excited to share a lot more of what the Apsis project is going to entail. And if you have questions, comments, you think I'm a moron for doing this again and it's way overpriced and stupid and it's hideous, I like to hear that. I've seen some of it on the other one, so keep it coming. We'll take the views, good, bad, or indifferent. And at the end of the day, they're all opinions, so we appreciate it, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode and appreciate you watching.